Today I'm going to be talking about a movie that I heard about in my first year of university 2 years ago from one of my very close friends who was also my housemate, and she'd heard that I'd watched, Hostel, Saw, etc., etc., and she told me that there was this really sick, gross movie called A Serbian Film. And I'm not really into horror or gore or scary movies. Every now and again, me and my friends will go and see a scary movie at the cinema on half price and stuff like that. So it's not too much money wasted because these films are usually very poor. But with gore and horror, it doesn't really do anything for me. I don't think it's worth investing sort of money into that genre because often they're very poor, they're not very scary, they're very generic, they're very predictable. So when she told me about, a Serbian film, she was like, "Oh, it's the most shocking film of all time. It's, it's such an outrage." And I was interested, and I thought, well, the person that she didn't really get affected by a lot of things. So I was thinking, if this girl is saying all these things about this particular film, then obviously there's something in it that has upset her or has really caught her attention. So yeah, I kind of googled it a bit, and I discovered what was in the film. Obviously, I'm going to talk about some scenes later, and the sort of subject matter I found kind of disturbing. Um, things like things like that don't usually disturb me, but the way that she was putting it across and the way that I was reading on the internet, it sounded like the worst, most horrific film in the entire universe. So I forgot about it because I wasn't really, stuff like that doesn't really interest me. So the other day I just ended up watching it. I managed to find a video for it, and I think I'm gonna give my thoughts and opinion on it as a whole. So what this film is basically about, according to the director, is it's an apparent analogy for Serbian society and the way the government treats its people. And okay, fair enough, I can see the sort of the parallels between what happens in the movie and what the director's trying to put across and everything. But I think that there are a thousand other ways you can get that message across, still having the same like hard hitting effect instead of putting the kind of scenes that he put in the movie. And after having watched it, I kind of feel that the director wanted to create a movie that was so shocking, so terrifying that it would get banned, and because it got banned, that it would get so much hype and people would go to watch it and people would pay to see it and stuff like that. Personally, I thought saying all these things about it was a publicity stunt, and I still do. So having watched it, basically it's about this porn star who back in the day was very, he was at the top of his game sort of thing, and now his family's struggling for money. So this director comes up to him and says, "You were a really, really great porn star back in the day, so I'm going to offer you one last job. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's going to be art porn." So the porn star, who's called Milosh, is kind of like, yeah, I'll do it, because the incentive is that he'll earn so much money that his family will be, set for the rest of their lives, and his son won't have to worry about his finances. His son is a little boy. And his family consists of his son, who's called Peter, who's I think 7 years old or something like that, and his wife, I can't remember her name. And he's got a brother as well. And that's basically, and he's got a contact who knows him through the porn business. I think she's a friend, she's called Layla or something. So the beginning of the movie is very slow. It's a very slow build up. Personally, I found it really boring. I ended up skipping because the reason I watched it, I'm not gonna lie, is to see like how horrifying this content was, because I was thinking, is it really that bad? Like, I don't really get affected by stuff like this. I've seen it in Hostel, I've seen it in Saw, I haven't seen a Human Centipede. I don't really want to see it, but I kind of figured that it would be that kind of same level of stuff. But I thought, if everyone's saying it's the worst film on earth, then it must be doing something pretty special to get that sort of attention and that vibe. So yeah, I was skipping forward because I was kind of like bored with all the story elements. Honestly, because I kind of feel it's one of those films that you watch to see all the shocking stuff that's inside it. So I felt this whole story build up really was just kind of hampering what people really went to watch it for. The way it was directed, I think it had a very distinct art style, and I was kind of shocked to see that. I didn't expect to see it. I thought it would just be a complete B gore horror movie with guts and gore everywhere, but it did present itself rather well. its soundtrack was actually pretty good. I actually like this song for the closing credits. It's a pretty good song. But yeah, I find myself kind of skipping through it, and then you get to all the kind of gory stuff, and then there's a scene where he actually starts the work, and then he goes in and people are filming him, and he sees like a girl, she's like 12, 13 or something like that. She's not legal anyway, and you can kind of tell from there there's these sort of like vibes, this sort of like underage child pornography vibe sort of thing, so you know what's coming. It did kind of shock me actually having seen it on screen, because I've never quite watched anything like that before. I've heard about it, but I've never watched anything like that before. And it kind of did make me feel a bit uncomfortable, but I thought, okay, obviously the way they directed the movie is that the girl, whoever is playing the girl, her name is Jekka, I think, she's going to be completely safe on the film set, and they're not going to actually make her see any of the stuff that's going on. So I was really glad for that. And when they showed Milos receiving a blowjob from her mother, and there was images on the screen, I thought, okay, I kind of felt that it was building the sort of tension up to kind of get to that point where things were so fucked up. Sorry, I don't mean to use language, but I think that's the only way to kind of describe it. Things were so like messed up. Yeah, they were just using that to build up to that point where things were just so horrific. So I was kind of thinking, okay, weird to see him watching, this girl eat this ice cream. Is obviously there's a lot of sexual undertones and stuff like that. But I continued watching it. I wasn't really interested in the narrative. I didn't really care. I wasn't there for the story. The pacing, again, it bored me. The story bored me. I wasn't invested in any of the characters. And then, I was skipping forward through it. And then there's a bit where what does he do? Yeah, he's drug. No, this is afterwards. The scene that I think kind of made it be known as the most horrifying movie of all time. I kind of feel like overall the film does have really gory, kind of gross elements. I mean, there's a woman who gets beheaded, he's having sex with her, he beheads her, and then there's a scene where he's like having sex with his own son under a sheet, and then his brother's having sex with his wife, and it's just kind of really messed up. I didn't see the scene where he basically, how to say this without swearing, basically penetrates his brother's eye socket and kills him. I didn't see that bit because I fast forwarded it. Not because I didn't want to see it, but I just didn't realise that I missed it in my fast forwarding of the movie. And there's a scene where we see his porn star friend Layla, his like sort of connection. She basically told the director the whole thing that it was, she wasn't going to let Milos continue with the content that the director was trying to put out, because she didn't feel it was right. And basically, in sort of revenge, he captured her, tied her up, basically pulled all her teeth out. You don't see that, but you see her teeth on the floor, and then you see some guy going up to her and basically choking her with his penis until she dies, basically. I didn't realise it was Layla at first. I thought it was just a random woman, but afterwards, because I wasn't that invested in the film, I didn't feel its story was particularly compelling. I didn't really care about the characters. I was just there for the gore. As I said, I just kind of got to all these gory bits, and then after having watched the end of it, I kind of feel that all of that, apart from this one particular scene, and everyone knows what I'm talking about, but I kind of feel that I saw all that kind of stuff before in films like Hostel. Hostel was really, really, really gross. Like, it didn't really disturb me because, again, that kind of content doesn't really do anything to me, but, like, I've seen that kind of stuff before, so to me it was kind of weird that people would say that it was the most disgusting, horrifying film of all time. Yeah, it's really kind of, like, messed up. But I think the thing that irritates me the most is the direct. He's saying, yeah, it's an analogy for the way the Serbian government treats its people. And it's like, okay, I can get why you want to show as much violence as possible and use metaphors through pornography, because Eastern Europe is known a lot for its pornography, particularly Poland, I think. And I kind of have the feeling that the only reason this movie is known to be the most disgusting, gross, horrifying movie of all time is because of the scene where the guy basically helps deliver a woman's baby. And I didn't think this scene was going to affect me as much as it did, but honestly it did. And basically he lifts the baby up, the umbilical cord's still attached, and the baby's upside down. He basically smacks it on the bottom, and then he proceeds to rape the baby, and the woman's watching and she's all like smiling and stuff. And then you don't actually see him doing it to the baby, but you see the movements of him doing it to the baby, and the baby's crying, and it's awful. But I'm not really a fan of babies. I'm not maternal really, but I recently had a family member who'd given birth to a baby, and I've grown really close to this baby. So I think that kind of gave me a new perspective on the whole scene. I think it did bother me more than it would have done if I didn't have this connection to this newborn baby in the family. And I just felt that it was this scene that was the absolute key to getting all this publicity. And it irritates me. It irritates me that a director, would even think of preparing this scene, of putting this scene on paper, of storyboarding this scene. And honestly, I think he's using the whole, metaphor for Serbian society as an excuse to just create something that's really shocking for the sake of shocking people. There was no reason to put that scene, because honestly there are just some things I feel that even though you can do them, that morally, civilly, I think it should be your human responsibility to not cross those lines. And I feel that this movie kind of crossed the line with that scene. I think it was completely unnecessary. It was disgusting. Otherwise, the movie, yeah, it was gross, but it wasn't like anything that you couldn't see in other films like Hostel. But just to have that one scene where it's just so morally bankrupt, it disgusts me. It just irritates me that people, particularly directors and actors, feel it's okay to kind of portray this thing. And I kind of thought that given the content of the movie, that some of the actors would have been very, very hesitant to take part in the filming and everything like that. Because if you remember Stanley Tucci, who plays, he's in The Lovely Bones, he plays the guy who basically implies that he rapes and kills Susie Salmon. He was saying that the role was very difficult to play because it was a role of an old guy who basically raped and murdered a teenage girl, and that was kind of a very stigmatic thing. And he had, reservations about doing it, but he did do it. And with a film like that doesn't really show the violence, but it implies it, but it's nowhere near as it's nothing like a Serbian film. And then you have these actors in a Serbian film that they just completely outright accept the role. They're really eager to do it. Honestly, I don't want to insult people from Eastern European countries or these Eastern European countries themselves, but I kind of feel that if you're alright with doing something like that, knowing what you're doing on screen, even though it is simulated, I feel that maybe there's kind of something wrong with you. I don't think it's alright to simulate, child rape, and I don't think it's alright to simulate underage sex on screen. Sex that's like, because you have films about kids who are like teenagers, but they're exploring their sexuality, but I mean kids who are like serious minors, like 12, 13, 14, and then under. And then to go that step further and literally do it to a newborn baby who's barely taking its first breath, and to do that, it just really, really makes me sick. I don't think it was to show off politics and art. I don't think it was an analogy. I think it was an excuse to use this newborn porn, as they call it, scene as a way to get attention. I think it was a publicity stunt. And honestly, for me to have that on screen just shows that these directors are completely morally bankrupt. And honestly, I can say that I'm not going to be watching any more movies directed by this director because I'm completely disgusted. Anyway, yeah, don't bother watching the film. Go and watch Hostel because at least it doesn't have, you know, newborn rape.